Tell me, is love still a popular suggestion or merely an obsolete art? Forgive me for asking this simple question. I'm unfamiliar with his heart. I'm a stranger here myself. Why?
So it's good to see you again. You're one of these people, Bren, that really frighten me because you have so much on your resume. The workload you take on, I'm just bored. I just couldn't possibly handle that much. So today we're
Oh,
talking about your debut novel and a play. So let's start with the novel, which is called,
yeah.
remind me, Street Sweeper.
Street
So
sweeper. Yeah.
what's that all about?
Well, basically, it's contemporary fiction with a queer take. Really, it's a love story set in London over the Golden Jubilee summer of 2002. Two men in search of an identity find hope in love. So the two men are a 21-year-old Kosovan immigrant who's an ex-boy soldier from the Kosovan War, and he's been given a new identity, and he meets an older British Jamaican called Roland. He's trying to escape a Pentecostal past and a relationship with a woman with whom he's had a 15-year-old son. So first of all, they meet through basketball because they're both into basketball. And one day when Almir, who's the street sweeper, sees Roland practicing hoop, he watches the game and they end up basically, I can't give too much away, but they become friendly, and then they end up having sex, and then it becomes more than just the sex. But Almir can't identify as gay because of his cultural background. And Roland has got this very intelligent but bolshy 15-year-old son. So it keeps getting on. There are other minor characters in the book as well, but
that's enough.
Yeah.
You shouldn't give
it
away.
It's a hopeful story. It's got a positive ending. It doesn't end in misery.
Okay, two things then. Where did it come from, the story? And why a novel now? You're a playwright. So why a novel?
In fact, I started off trying to write a novel about 15 years ago. I mean, basically, I came through a period of really bad illness, ill health. I had CFS-ME, I don't know, chronic fatigue syndrome, and that actually made me housebound for 2 years. I couldn't walk. I had to learn to walk again. It took 5 years to recover from that. And I think a lot of writers will mention probably when they're asked this question, what triggered it? And for me, it was this life-changing health thing. I completely recovered, but it took a long time. I spent a lot of time just lying basically on a mattress in my front room, looking out the window and listening to the radio.
Wow.
I noticed the street sweeper. I could see the rhythm of the day passing by things that I maybe had just ignored before. And I saw this young guy, pass every day, and I thought, well, he looks quite handsome, but also I kind of wondered what his backstory was, because London being London, and big cities get a huge cultural mix from incoming migration. So I never got to meet him or interview him, but as I got better, I started to write short prose. I attended a couple of short prose courses at London City University, and then I was encouraged to apply for the novel studio there, which is a year-long postgraduate program, and out of that came the first 3 chapters for Street Sweeper. So quite a long time ago. What interested me was this thing about the dynamic between two cultures colliding and queerness still being fizzing up, because it does. You can't say this culture doesn't have queer.
But it's very much a London story, though. because there are different cultures there.
Yeah, I think it is very much a London story, or it's a metro. I mean, it could be in New York, I guess,
Yeah, yeah.
but it's very much a metropolitan story.
And
It's an
you
urban.
you've always had this hankering for Nigerians. Okay. I just wonder.
I have
Uh,
quite a lot of black gay
yeah,
friends, so
yeah,
it's quite interesting listening to people talk about how um, sometimes difficult it had been for them to
yeah.
come out to their families, for example, or uh, their straight peers. Remember, this is set in 2002, so it's more
Mhm.
than 2 decades ago. Things have come a lot
Oh yeah.
further for all of us, but particularly then, pre smartphones and everything as well. I think it was much more difficult, particularly for global majority queer people. I went to uh, I went to the street sweeping depot, the cleansing depot of the local council, and I followed a street sweep around for a day. I visited and spent a day in a Pentecostal church, which is very interesting. Just to put all that in my own head
Yeah,
for the
yeah.
characters, and that took a while to develop before I went on to the story.
Hmm. So this is a total change, though, from your play, which is about single elderly men, well, in their sixties, gay men facing reality. Now, you've just mentioned you've got a partner, so I know it's not about you. And I
Yeah.
want people to know before I carry on this interview, it's not about me. I'm married. Um, why this subject?
Well, so Invisible Me is about three Londoners
Yeah.
who are about to hit 60.
Hmm.
They're all single for different reasons, not necessarily of their own making.
Hmm.
They don't really want to be, and they're looking for some sort of connection and trying to find a way to look to the future
Hmm.
with positivity. They
Yeah.
want to kind of reinvent themselves. They're not quite sure how. Um, and of those three people, one is a woman who's a cleaner. They're all working class. So one is a
Hmm.
cleaner in a hotel. Her elderly mother has died, and she's left her house. She sort of goes out part time to do this cleaning job, but she's quite timid. And then the gay guy is HIV positive, and he's a widower. So his partner wasn't positive, and the couple expected him to die first. I thought that was quite interesting for me to play with that concept because HIV care has moved on so much, and I want to put a character there where it's part of this character's history, but it's not the main thing. Um,
This is set
so
now. This is set in present
it's
time.
contemporary, yes, yeah.
Because we know that up to 95, before
Mm,
96, before protease inhibitors
yeah.
came out, it was automatic that if your partner had it, you had it, and you died too. So, how would this play out, do you think, to younger audiences who are still in denial about that AIDS ever affects them?
Roger, what I think is important is that we don't forget our recent collective history.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm not just talking about, LGBTQ history, I'm talking about, world history, because AIDS is still out there, the pandemic is
Immense.
still going on. But it did disproportionately affect in the West gay men, as we know, you and I know, we lived through it. And so I think what I'm trying to show here is an older gay man who lived through that time when being infected with HIV virus meant you were going to die, and you
Yeah.
were going to die a horrible death unless you were extremely lucky. Um, and even when the meds came along, the first 5 years at least were pretty horrible to take. So,
Mhm.
and they're much easier now. But people shouldn't forget that there are people around in our community that carry that history in their head, and it impacts on how they see the world now. It's like
But totally.
a legacy.
But
So now well, I wanted to put this guy center stage where his partner's died, big deal for any couple, one of them dies,
mhm,
but he didn't expect to be the one to die first. Um, the partner wasn't positive. So he died first and left this guy alone. And this guy is having to go out there now, and he is getting some attention from other men.
mhm.
He's going onto the apps, which are kind of like a foreign thing because when he was doing all that before, they didn't exist.
Yeah,
Um, yeah, this is somewhat familiar with the internet, but not, you know. all the apps. And so I just wanted to see, I wanted to play around a bit with that and also make it hopeful. And particularly, I think it relates to young people now, gay and straight or whatever persuasion, because from what I can get, it's not easy being in this digital dating environment, and all you hear is negative stories. Well, not all, but you know, I mean, some romances start on Grindr and carry on. I met a guy last year in Italy. We were over in Italy, and we met this guy through Tango. I had on Tango, and he took Howard and I and my partner for dinner with his partner, and you know, the conversation. How did you meet? How did you meet? And they met on Grindr. Here they are, like 10 years later. But I wanted to just.
What I was thinking, because I sometimes get this. Do you not get any negative feedback saying AIDS is over, let's move on from gay people? I know it's not over, but I sometimes get the attitude, stop talking about it.
You know, it's interesting you say that, because I know when I was looking at pitching to agents some of my work, there was one agency that's quite new, obviously a younger guy setting up on his own. And I was quite offended when I read no AIDS stories, because I thought, okay, that's fair enough, but is it fair enough? Because you can't deny
No,
it's part of us, and we should never forget it. And you don't always want to write about it, but
no,
for example, if you take in a 60-year-old gay man now, they will have been young, coming out trying to have a good time when there was death all around, you know, and you know, something that's so important, and it affects the way people see the world.
totally.
It's a traumatic, post-traumatic stress
Oh, yeah. But the most
situation for a lot
important
of
thing to
people.
me is that
Mm,
it's us that tell our stories. Because if we don't tell our stories, it will go out of sync. This is a
mm.
silly question to ask a workaholic like you, but do you know what's
Not a
next?
workaholic.
Do you know what's next for you?
I have written another play, which is also, it's kind of a queer theme, because it's called Grossly Indecent.
Yes, I read that.
And I started it 2 years ago when I was at the Criterion Theatre Writers Group. It's a Criterion Theatre in London. And so it's kind of written, and it's tweaking a bit, and it's inspired by the blasphemy trial that a Christian right-wing campaigner called Mary Whitehouse, you might have heard
Yes.
that name. Uh,
If you haven't heard of her, look her up.
yeah, there's plenty around like her now as well. And in America, you had, what was that woman's
Anita
name?
Bryant.
That's it, yeah, that kind of figure.
Yeah.
Anyway, she brought a case against Britain's only gay newspaper at that time, Gay News, for blasphemy. And so the play is in the context of, it's set in 1977 in London. A gay journalist working for that gay newspaper who really existed, somebody called
Dennis
Jeff
Lemon.
Grace.
Dennis Lemon.
Not Dennis Lemon,
Okay.
a journalist called Jeff Grace.
All right.
And Jeff Grace was friendly with somebody who worked in the erotic entertainment industry in Soho, a female sex symbol. In fact, she was Britain's #1 female sex symbol in the late 70s. And she asked him to help her write or ghostwrite a straight erotic novel. So I found this out from a mutual friend who's now in his early 70s, who was this journalist's boyfriend at the time. That Jeff Grace unfortunately died of AIDS in the mid-90s. And he told me all this amazing story, and I thought that's really interesting. And in the context of what was going on at the time, where there was quite a lot of progress being made in terms of women's rights in the West, anyway, and gay men's rights, and a lot of optimism about the future, but still quite a lot of repression in terms of police harassment of gay men, toilets, just cruising in public, club raids, all of that. And it was before AIDS. So I thought it was interesting, that snapshot in 1977, just before all of that horrible time, to look at that world. And I thought it was funny.
When you finish watching this, look back in Queerguru. I think the last time Bren and I talked was when you did a play about the fabulous Princess Diana.
Yeah.
didn't you? Wasn't that
Moment of Grace, that's right, yeah.
Remember Grace, when that was an important part of queer history of us in the UK, when someone from the royal family actually touched and spoke to an AIDS patient. I'm so pleased you're still at it. I'm so pleased you're still telling our history. It's important to us because when us oldies go, we need to leave a reminder that it's still a recent history. You know, we've only been in England, we've only had homosexuality illegal since 1969. And I just learned the other day in Northern Ireland, it was in 82. So thank you for telling our history. And please, if you're in London, rush and see the play. If you're not in London, go and buy the book. Thanks for talking to me.
Pleasure always, Roger.
Tell me, is love still a popular suggestion or merely an obsolete art? Forgive me for asking this simple question. I'm unfamiliar with his heart. I'm a stranger here myself. Why is it wrong to murmur I adore him when it's shamefully obvious I do? Does love embarrass him, or does it bore him? I'm only waiting for my cue. I'm a stranger here myself. I dream of a day.